Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar or live panel discussion. We're really grateful that you've joined us. We've got some great panelists with us to have the conversation with. But first off, let's kind of start with some intros. So I'll be hosting the live panel today. I'm Tom Nichols, Chief Commercial Officer of Manuka AI. Manuka is a data and AI services company specializing in Databricks and helping organizations realize value from their data investment through AI and data solution builds that deliver business value. But this conversation is around agentic AI and the announcement from Databricks around Agentbricks coming out. But we'll dive into that in a second. We'll go around and introduce the panelists so you know who is talking today. So let's start with Paris. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, my name's Paris. I'm Director of Data for a company called Kavu. We're a travel experience company with physical and digital touchpoints, and we work with a range of clients, including airports and vendors who manage lounges such as Amex. Kiko, you want to go next?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Kiko. I'm a data analytics manager at CVP, who are a private equity house and currently holding 20 portfolio companies. And my role here is to help the different portfolio companies with their data strategy and different data initiatives and data projects. Thank you. Ila?
Thank you. So I'm Ela Devani, and I'm Product and Data Director at a company called Thomas Telford, which is actually an information provider for government departments and other private organizations that have large infrastructure companies. So I lead on the data and the digital transformation processes there.
Super. Thanks, Ela. Thanks, Paris and Kiko. So we've got a great panel today to talk about all things data and AI, but specifically focused on agentic AI. I guess the kind of context of this is, Manuka, pure play Databricks partner. Databricks have announced Agentbricks and at their San Francisco conference. And for us, this is really exciting. As a Databricks partner, it sounds really cool. Everyone's talking about agentic AI, and this fits nicely into it. But what we want to explore is kind of what does that mean in practice for people who are at the coalface of driving their businesses forward. And so this conversation will touch on Agentbricks, and I'll just kind of run through a little bit of what that is. But it really is taking that kind of holistic view and trying to tap into some of the challenges that I guess I'm seeing in conversations with people, but hearing from Paris and Ela and Kiko around what they're experiencing so that we can share that insight with everybody. But I guess the first question, and the thing to clarify, is kind of what is Agentbricks? So it's a new product that Databricks have launched, which is a zero code, no code, basically automatic agent builder. So the idea being that you can use natural language, kind of human interaction to guide the technology product, Agentbricks, to build agentic solutions for you. So instead of having the complexity of coding, you have the ability to say what you want to do, what you want it to do in simple human terms, language, and point it at the data that it needs to explore. This allows, obviously, frees up complexity and allows it kind of democratizes the access to building agentic solutions. But it also has built within it the ability to kind of optimize the agents that it's calling on and continually monitor those. I think the other key thing that's quite exciting when I was looking into it was around Databricks calling out this kind of automatic human feedback loop. So you don't have to kind of go in and code the feedback. You can give it, again, natural language, kind of human interaction to guide Agentbricks, the product, on the feedback of what it's built in terms of the agentic solution. So that could be saying, ignore this part of the data, or this doesn't feel quite right, do something about it. And this ability to remove the need for complex coding, really, in kind of my view, I think exciting because it opens up the opportunity for more people to take advantage of it. Now, that's all well and good, but actually I think there are some kind of hanging questions around that in terms of practicals. So, does that bring in risk to the business? Like, how do you still ensure that it's delivering the value that it's supposed to? How does that fit into the broader ecosystem of what an organization is building around its digital and data transformation roadmap? So they're kind of some of the questions I guess I was left with when I heard the announcement and was looking into it. And that was the rationale for having this discussion, because I found that in other conversations with people, there is genuine excitement and people are utilizing it. But it'd be good to kind of dive into, with Paris and Ida and Kiko, what this is about, which we'll do now. So I think the first starting point really is agentic AI. It's a hot topic. What does an agentic solution mean? Kind of what value can it deliver to a business? And therefore, why is Agentbricks so exciting? In the context of that question, Kiko, should we come to you first, if that's okay? And kind of, what does it, in your world where you're looking across, a number of portfolio companies, kind of agentic AI, and the nature of this must be on the cards. What does it mean to you? Like, how are you advising businesses on it?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. I like to take a small step back and try to come up with a definition of an agent or agentic AI. And to me, without trying to be too rigorous, there are two key aspects that need to be, two key ingredients that need to be within an agentic solution. First is one, there needs to be an element of unstructured data, because my take is that if all the data that the agent is dealing with is structured and can be interpreted purely mathematically, then there are much better solutions out there than what we are understanding as agentic AI. So there's the unstructured data element and then the decision element. And the decision is that this is not analytics, this is not showing information for a user to make a for a user to eventually make a decision. There needs to be either the piece of software either needs to make the decision itself or strongly suggest a decision for a human just to confirm that. And to me, that these are the two things that define what would be an agentic AI solution. And with respect to some of the questions that you were laying out, to me, the first thing that I would do when trying to think, oh, where I would put Agentbricks in place would be, can we identify a process that contains these two elements, some unstructured data and a decision that needs to be made based on this unstructured data? And can we find somewhere where a human was making this processing of data plus decision and put there a piece of software that is going to not replace, but is probably going to accelerate the delivery of that process? I'd like to just open to Paris and Ila to comment on this, but yeah, I can build on top of it as well.
Yeah, please, Paris. Ila, do you have a viewpoint and build on what Kiko was saying?
I'll let Ela go first. She came off mute.
Okay, I'll go next. I think I completely agree with what Kiko has been talking about, that it's actually enabling you to build on a process. I kind of look at it, I look at our agentic AI as something that is almost like a self-acting assistant for human beings. And from a business perspective, I always start when I look at AI and even agentic AI, I like to think about the use cases. What are the use cases that you could actually manipulate AI with, for and use agentic AI? So, I mean, looking at actually, the work that Databricks has done, I kind of think it's a bit like looking at a pieces of Lego blocks, because it uses predefined but flexible components, and therefore actually that modularity could help to accelerate innovation, risk, and enable you to fast track and embed your AI into processes with that infrastructure investment upfront. I think it's exciting that it's a no-code solution. And I can think of a number of use cases that I would look at in our business to support, to actually use Agentbricks. So, for instance, customer support agent, because as Kiko said, it takes the unstructured data and you can marry it with the structured data. So if you're using a help desk system, you can combine it with other emails or other information you're getting from your various teams, like sales teams, and therefore it will enable you to analyze and understand actually kind of how you can increase customer satisfaction. So that's one thought. Do you want to go next, Paris?
Yeah, sure. I'll actually kind of build on your points and illustrate with a bit of an example from our side as well. So again, like we have a bunch of data in Kavoo, tons of structured, tons of unstructured data. And we do have quite a lot of complex, bespoke customer service use cases as well. So, for example, we work with products such as travel insurance, which have a lot of regulatory and legal information built into them. So often, agentic solutions such as this can be extremely helpful for that human touch on top as well in surfacing a lot of instrumental information to some of these use cases. So, for example, buttoning up on that, legal specifics to specific inquiries and kind of, I guess, sub-uses of things such as travel insurance. So hopefully that helps like illustrate the point a little bit.
Yeah, that really helps. I think you guys are saying some consistent things. One thing you said that I was kind of drill into quickly was around almost like this kind of right solution for the right problem. I think you started at Kiko, and everybody's built on that. But how, I guess, kind of how do you go about in your businesses? How are you going about finding the right problems to tackle? And then kind of the subsequent question on that is then how are you taking others on the journey? This is such a like agentic solutions to new technology. Obviously, Databricks has just come out. There's finding problems. People have always been finding problems in their businesses. But like, how are you guys going about it and making sure that the right technology is being used to solve that problem? I guess we go back to you, Paris, as you're last to speak.
So I think it comes back to one of the first things that Kiko said, which is like crafting a problem statement. So it's just really, the same way you would approach anything, like the what and the why, and really drill down into that with stakeholders. Often with things like, agent bricks and new solutions, it sparks a lot of eagerness and excitement in stakeholders, which is brilliant. We want that as data professionals, but sometimes there's a kind of appetite to want to solutionize without thinking about the problem a little bit first. So often it's the same conversations that we're always having. Let's take it back to basics and let's ask 25 questions that relate around why to get the what and the why, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can comment on that. So very recently we were talking with this company that they provide some a health service, and we were looking at the way they engage with new leads coming in, and we were thinking, oh, what's the right type of solution? And I think for me, something that really helped was try to understand the process. So linking back to, can we map out the process? How are the potential customers flowing through the different stages until we book an appointment, right? And in that, once you have that tree, and once you understand what are the different blocks that compose that flow or that compose the entire process, then you can much more easily identify what's the type of solution that you need. And I'll give you a concrete example. So say you get a call. So one way of booking or trying to find an appointment is calling. Can I put a voice AI that is going to take the call? That's going to be completely different from the AI that would read an inbound email, because maybe the inbound email can reply with a templated answer. So the type of agent or the type of solution is going to be completely dependent, but the very critical aspect is to understand the process very well. And if the process is not abstracted enough, you're going to have to do that exercise anyway. You're going to have to try to abstract the process. Otherwise, you won't know what blocks you can improve because everything is mixed.
Yeah, that's a really key point. I think that's that kind of understanding the business process, right, Kiko, and kind of the value chain that the organization kind of supports itself on, and working out within that how you change some of the key areas to almost kind of re-engineer that with an improved technology lens. I guess your point, Paris, is kind of business value first, then technology enables that to happen. I guess Elo, when you did your intro, you talked about having some really kind of clear views of where there could be use cases in the business. And I know we spoke before around the kind of broader digital transformation journey you're on? Like, how are you bringing this kind of rapid rise, given the conversation, the rapid rise in technology into that digital change, which I guess, if we talk about the terminology in terms of business and changes, digital transformation is something that's been around for a while, and we're now trying to getting into this sort of AI enablement and transformation. But I think the joining of those two worlds is quite a key thing. I'd be really interested to hear your view of how you're trying to Thomas Telford on that journey.
So really kind of, both Kiko and Paris have talked about this, is identifying the right problem. But also, I think to build on that, it's about looking at high effort and repeatable tasks that are being performed. Once you've done that, actually, then really thinking about how do you prioritize the pain points and which ones will have the most measurable effect? Where are people spending a lot of time? Where are we losing efficiency, missing revenue, or delaying decisions? But the other key thing I feel we need to look at is that's all well and good, but even a good problem might not be right for agentic AI. So you have to look at your data, the accessible structured data, the unstructured data you might have, what are the clear inputs and outputs, what the agent should do. And I think you need to start building on that. One of the things I'm looking at is let's try and build some sort of a trial project to begin with. And that involves cross-functional teams, low dependency on legacy systems, because that's where you see problems. Almost start with the newer data, the newer structures we're creating, and see if we can start to pilot something. So that's the kind of process that I'm going through right now.
Okay, that's really interesting. I just going to build on that exactly. Like Paris and Kiko, up to you guys who goes first. But how are you approaching the actual movement forward and these steps of? I know, like as you talked before, we spoke around your kind of data journey you're on and the transformation you're happening. I think Ila's just outlined a really good example of how to get going and not be constrained by legacy. Be interesting to understand how yourself and Kiko, what you're seeing in the companies, how you guys go around that, particularly again, given this, to your point, Paris, massive excitement and sometimes desire to rush ahead with a new bit of shiny tech and kind of agent bricks. Like, how are you going on that journey? Okay. Go, Paris. Sorry, you go.
So we're not using agent bricks yet. There's discussions around use cases. We migrated to Databricks last year. But I think as well, it's a double-sided exploration as well. It's about understanding the appropriateness of the use case as well for the end users. So I think if I'm understood it correctly, it is touching on more internal use cases. So I guess that there's also that consideration of the stakeholder group, whether it's internally facing, how appropriate that's going to be for those stakeholders versus external with clients as well. And then additionally, the sensitivity of the data that you're actually surfacing as well.
Okay. Yeah, agreed. Kiko, did you have?
Yeah, so around the value points that Eli, you were making, for most of the companies that I'm engaging with in the portfolio, we are still quite early, and we are still in some cases just making sure that data is available on the cloud, that we are integrating data from various systems into a single data lake or into a warehouse. So we definitely have thought about use cases for agentic AI or agent bricks if it was the relevant one. But I think in most cases, when we prioritize value, we need to make sure that we get the infrastructure right. And it's a harsh reality is that it's difficult to get people excited about engineering, as interesting as it is. But you need to cross that bridge, right? You need to make sure that you get the engineering, you get the platform right. You can create some reports and you can try to build some agentic AI by putting certain data on a place that is accessible by the agent. But there's just good data infrastructure is still very, very valuable, and this is where we are putting the focus most of the time in the time that I've been at CVP. So in summary, I think we need to, so we definitely have the AI use cases as a means to excite the business and to show them that there are opportunities for huge value creation. Equally, we need to make sure that we can report right, that the data is readily available, that there's consistent reporting across systems, that there's definitions that make sense. So that all those basics need to be there before you can make sure you, well, not before, but in parallel with, or not in replacement of, if this makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, Paris, did you?
I was just going to say it's also, I guess, that the biggest thing I would say from my point of view is the stakeholder management as well, and bringing it back to basics, which I guess is what Kiko is touching on as well, around basics around like data quality and the importance of like how much like time and grace you need to ensure that you've got all of your, I guess, foundational processes and that quality piece in place. Which I guess comes back to the piece that I was mentioning earlier around high appetite, and I guess sometimes less understanding or context for how much time and how much of a journey some of these pieces can be as well.
If I can just come in at that point, I mean, just to clarify, we too are going on a data journey. So we're setting up our foundations, but I'm still at the same time looking at the opportunities and the use cases. So we have had this discussion with our board. They're quite keen for us to actually use AI and possibly agentic AI for internal processes at the same time with the digital transformation we're doing in terms of products for customers. Actually, we're presented now with an opportunity to actually take advantage of that. And that latter part may not necessarily just completely rely on our data, because we are looking to partner with other companies. So looking at it from different lenses, none of this has actually happened, but it's about developing that forward-looking plan to see at what point can we actually start to explore this and actually go beyond that exploration to piloting.
No, I think that's really helpful context, and I imagine a lot of the people listening are in a similar situation where there's the need to excite with the use cases and show the forward roadmap, but the pragmatic, let's get the foundations in and make sure we have the right balance. And it's that challenge. How do you do those things at the same time so you can go at pace, but actually do it in a sustainable way? Nobody wants to go launching amazing new bits of tech or hitting big use cases, but it's a flash in the pan and it doesn't deliver the value kind of sustainably. And I think that's the challenge. Just doing one thing I was going to pull on, because I know we spoke about this beforehand. I think you know about yourself, but that's a conversation of managing board, senior excitement with practical reality of where maybe the business is. Like, where does kind of risk fit into this? And when we talk about AI and the responsible AI framework that's come out, which these agentic solutions are going to have to kind of abide by as well. How are you guys finding senior stakeholders and their risk management kind of appetite, or are you getting challenges about that? Whoever would like to go first? I'm not sure who to direct that question to. So let's go. I know, unless Kiko, you're off. Go.
Yeah, I think it varies a lot by personality. I think there are certain personalities that are much more bullish to just take more risk, and then therefore they are willing to just, yeah, change a process, something that might be working, might be slightly inefficient, might have some issues, but is working overall, and then just put that in place, something that there's some uncertainties, right? And then so I guess the constant exercise goes up again back to the value and what's the upside. And then if you want to make certain elements part of your core proposition, right? So if you're, for example, today not serving customers on a Sunday because you don't have any people picking up the phone, and you put something there that is going to pick up the phone, or it might not pick up the phone correctly, so that's the risk, but at least you're putting there something, right? So the upside is you serve better, but the downside is you're taking the risk that the quality of service is not there. So it varies a lot by personality, and you. So what I'm doing is the people that are more open to the companies that are a bit more open to taking these steps, then those are the ones where it's easier to trial things, because otherwise it's very difficult with the buying from the relevant people. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Gigo. No, that's really interesting. That's a good point. Ila?
Yeah, so what I was going to do is sort of actually, we were talking a little while ago about managing the board, senior stakeholders, and risk. To me, those two things are kind of need to be tackled at a high level, they need to be tackled together before you move down the organization. So, one of the good things is that we're seeing a shift from what are we doing with AI, even before we get to agentic AI, to how are we protecting our data, how we're mitigating the bias, and how we're staying compliant. And I think that's a good thing because it means that our leadership is starting to see this as a strategic enabler, not just a text trend. So we are in the middle of developing our AI policy, and we're trying to come up with a careful balance there of risk and pace, but regularly delivering a clear narrative back to the senior stakeholders. And with, actually, if you move too slowly, you risk falling behind. But if you rush ahead without any data maturity or governance, that creates fragility. So that's quite key, and so that helps us to build the confidence, which does need kind of regular work and updating at each relevant point. But we are developing the AI policy, and there we're trying to kind of find that balance that it's not a very heavy duty policy at this stage. It combines how we use this internally versus how can we take advantage out there in the market. So I think it's a combination of things. And to me, risk is always about how each organization perceives it. And what are you doing to have the guardrails, the governance in place to achieve that balance?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That governance point of setting out the intent and then how you want to manage yourselves against the kind of guardrails and principles that you put in place. I guess, Paris, on that, when you were talking about some of the kind of solutions you've got and the sensitive information you can do, kind of how have you guys approached that governance and kind of control aspects of your journey? I know you said you just migrated technically, but some of the solutions that Cav have been delivering and the products have been for a while. I'd be interested to get your take on that.
So we have a good overlap. So our parent company is Manchester Airport Group. So they have a really strong structure, and we have a lot of collaboration as well with our parent company when it comes to regulation and the evolution of policy and the processes that we have with that as well. So I think in terms of risk appetite, I would say that there's different styles of evolution between parent and child company, but then how we're protected and evolve and have those I guess review panels as well. It means that we get very well-rounded points of view, which is particularly helpful because obviously, as I mentioned the use case earlier with that travel insurance or something, we do have a lot of external regulation and consistent reviews of other governing bodies, as well as AI regulation that we need to weave into everything. So certainly keeps us on our toes, but it doesn't necessarily hamstring us. It doesn't necessarily hamper us, should I say?
Yeah, okay. It's like you said, it's sort of keeping it in mind, isn't it? And keeping it in sight of what you're doing. And Kiko, is that something you see consistently across the portfolio companies? This kind of risk appetite / how they govern themselves?
We've done very limited work on on having AI specific policies or guardrails. I think the biggest risk that we have at the moment is probably around how people use tools and how people provide data. So if someone is using ChatGPT and is pasting information that is uh, private to the company, then that's a risk. So there's probably merit in putting effort on making sure how people are using the tools rather than internal bespoke tools that we are developing, because I think um, at the moment those guardrails would be guardrailing very limited assets, if this makes sense. So once we have some of the companies have certain agentic AIs, certain agents deployed, then um, there's probably more value in doing a proper thinking about that. Having said that, I think the where it needs to fall is within data governance, or to me, that's the natural place to fall. So making sure that we are compliant within the way we are managing the data, because I think that's the biggest risk beyond breaking a process. So if the agent can access certain data, how does that expose certain data to users that are using the agent, or how the agent is managing the data in general? So where I would start when we do invest the time in it would be making sure that these AI policies are within our internal data policies and data management. Um, that's it.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Something you just mentioned, I think kind of picking up it's a little thread we've gone down around the broader impact of AI technologies or any advancing in technology is obviously how you govern it and control it, manage expectations. But I think you just mentioned around kind of user awareness and how people are adopting tools. So if we kind of step out of the conversation of just technology and kind of putting better tech into a business because we've got the value case. I'd be interested to actually hear how you guys are going around that broader change journey, which can actually quite often get overlooked. And I think given a rapid, said before, kind of advancement in these technologies that are coming out, I think you mentioned there, Kiko, kind of ChatGPT and broader access for everybody. But how are your businesses handling that broader employee change, which may not fall under your kind of remit, but clearly could definitely derail any activity you're trying to do? Be really interesting, I think, to pull on that thread. Ila, I don't know if you want to go, like you were talking around kind of your broader transformation journey.
Yeah, so I think it's a really good point. And coming back to these tools like ChatGPT and Copilot, etc., we've already introduced a policy internally to say that actually we will use Copilot because actually that's within Office 365, and you have to have your login. To what extent that still protects you, I think we still are going through an education process internally, whereby we're trying to explain to users, like Kiko said, actually you might be putting in some confidential information into any of these tools, and how do you manage the risk of that leaking out? So yes, there are ways to switch off that facility, but beyond that, what kind of information should you put in these systems? And again, it comes back to that balance. So we want to educate our internal employees on how they should be using it to best effect. And we are going to have to go through some training programs there, because it's difficult otherwise for people to understand that just they have a framework and put it into action. So you've got the positive side of how you can use these tools, versus actually how should you be using them to protect your own data and manage the risk that way. I think, going back to that policy point, I see that evolving over time. because we are in such a fast-paced environment with AI, agentic AI, and so on, so that actually you can't have a static policy in place either. And probably that will mean updating of that, and probably means actually from time to time we're going to have to do the education in the same way that I think companies have tackled any new technology, even going back to things like Salesforce and so on. So it's no different. This is just, yes, it's allowing you to do something um, in a different way, and actually how you can maximize your efficiencies as well as take advantage of revenue opportunities. So it's about going through that same process as you would with a new piece of technology, but needing quite specific frameworks and training in place.
Just to build on that as well, the way that we go about it with Databricks. So as I mentioned, we onboarded to Databricks last year and went through a huge migration. So now we're in a place this year where we're really in like high collaboration phase with a lot of our stakeholders. So something that we do actually at Cavu. So data governance does sit within my team as a centralized function. We also have engineering, data science, BI. So we host quarterly hackathons, and we bring people from other areas of the business into them as well. So it's quite timely actually, because we're just planning a data governance one. So we're looking to build something around governance. So yeah, that's how we bring stakeholders on the appropriate journey, and then look at the pulse points, as Ela mentioned, where sometimes we will have to build out additional subsets to our policy as well off the back of that. I think the collaboration piece is really key for us as a business, because data is so embedded in all areas of it.
That's really helpful. I think when you were just talking then around how you bring the teams together, Paris, and kind of get them on the same page in the journey, I was just thinking, actually, just kind of loop back to the start, and Agentbricks and a piece of technology like Agentbricks that actually kind of almost said democratizes access to people be able to build agentic solutions. There's probably no, well, there may be, but get your view on where would an obvious home for that be in, say, your organization? Is that something that you, as the kind of data director, would want to have control and governance over, and how that's used, and it's kind of your team, or would that be something that you would want to push out into the business more? I think it just pushes the boundaries, doesn't it, of access points.
So I mean, ultimately, like, we still hold the guardrails around everything, and we're the data owners and gatekeepers in lots of senses. But I think it's important to ensure that stakeholders are included as well. So it's about that kind of exchange that you have with stakeholders as well. And then really it's an education piece. Stakeholders often don't know what they don't know, which is fine. And there's tons of functionality in platforms like Databricks as well. So it's just about breaking it down and, including stakeholders. It's quite that sounds a bit simple, but I think it's often back to basics a lot as well. But ultimately, we are the gatekeepers, and we have data ambassadors, and we have data champions in different areas as well. So we always have different SMEs in the team that stakeholders can always come to as well. So we're accessible in that sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's right. Sorry, Kiko, did you?
No, yes, it's interesting. It's to me, it's related to reporting. Would you want any user to build their own reports and to serve a report that is very, very specific to their needs? And I think there's value in that. There's value in each user having their own reports and serving very, very specific needs. I think the counterpoint to that is you want to make sure that there is some consistency across reporting, and if you replace reporting with agent actions, then you probably, if you have an agent that is doing certain things against emails or certain things against change a booking slot or you name it, you probably don't need 10 agents doing that. So I wonder that at this point, this is very far from what we would be able to deploy. But I do understand Paris' points around, yes, bring in the stakeholder or the user. At the same time, you definitely need some level of control on what you are deploying, because otherwise you get to a point where you might have 10 agents doing the same thing or slightly different things, which might be even worse.
I was just going to add, Tom, and
Yeah.
I think, I liken this actually what we're doing with this new technology to something like even using visualization tools like Power BI and so on. And we're quite a small company. So, and I think it's key that you identify the key roles in your business and who should be doing what with agentic AI, because you can't have, I think I kind of, building on what Kiko said, do you really want 10 agents? And then how do you maintain that consistency? How do you actually manage the governance? So it kind of brings about lots of other risks, I think. So especially if you're new to this, and a lot of us are, in terms of actually adoption, then I think you need to sort of keep it confined to begin with, and develop it further. Obviously, you want to bring your stakeholders in, and actually, it's about who should be consuming versus who should be driving the development.
Yeah, I was just thinking when Kiko was talking, and you've just kind of hit the part on it. It's like, how does, like you said, who's using it, who's consuming it, and then I think there's that, how do you control? I just scribbled down a note about kind of control, and I think that's from kind of brings into like capabilities and skills when you think about an operating model and how you want to run and drive. Like I was talking about the kind of your data, the data team and how you kind of set that up. That it begs the question, right, with this kind of no code approach to building agentic solutions. One, yes, what do you want the business to do and how do you control that? But actually, then what does the skill, what does the team look like? What skills in the team? Do the team become more control orientated and governance versus coding because there is no code? And then what does that? I'd be really interested just as while you guys are all on the journey and no one not using it, like what do you think, kind of looking forward, how your teams might change, and do you see any need to change the composition and skill sets within the teams you have, or Kiko within the businesses that you oversee? Whoever would like to go, appreciate. I'm not directing that at anyone in particular.
Yeah, I can go. I think see if we think of three non-specific team members, right? And we eventually get to a point where for the process that this person was working on, 20% is augmented by these agents, and for another one it's 30%, and for another one it's 40. Definitely that freed up time is gonna go somewhere. So the question is when the team grows, definitely the balance between teams is going to change. And I think at the moment, the focus is who is willing or uh, who can pick up understanding how is this 20% getting augmented, right? So if you have 5 individuals and then one of them or two of them are going to embrace that their process is going to change, that's much easier than to deploy and roll out. So those people are definitely going to be much more productive or slightly more productive than the ones that want to stay within the old process, and that's going to bring an advantage to the people that are embracing this augmentation, right? So I I think there's two parts. There's the immediate future, which is embracing the change and how teams are going to accept that there's going to be parts of their daily job that are going to be augmented by these agents, and therefore they can spend time somewhere else and don't need to be templating the same email time and time again. And then there's in 2 years when these agents are deployed, the proportions of the work that are being automated or are being streamlined, that's going to free up some time, and that's going to eventually move people between teams, or it's going to rebalance the teams out because the time is simply spent differently.
I guess to build on that as well, it's about that lateral thinking that people in the data team have as well. So if we think of things around like data governance, so as we automate a lot of processes around like automated PII tagging, for instance, you might want your data engineering or data governance professionals to actually have some kind of blended skills between the technical skill set and maybe more change management as well, with dealing with those stakeholders and the internal human changes that you have to build around the automation as well. I was having a conversation a few months ago with somebody in data engineering, and we were talking about people who use recording software in interviews to prompt them with their answers through Gen AI. And this person hadn't necessarily considered the consent factor. So I think often it's rounding off that lateral thinking and some of those considerations in different disciplines of data as well. That's what we'd be looking for.
Yeah, that's a much broader, isn't it, view of the team and like what they're expected to take on. That's I hadn't considered the change aspect. Was interesting. Ela, sorry, I think you were.
Yeah, no, I think just building on that. So first of all, I think there are obviously stages like Kiko was saying. So in the immediate future, you would probably start off small, keep it within a small team, but even they will need their skills to be upskilled because these are people that might actually need help with spotting use cases, how to tease out those use cases from different functions, evaluate the outcomes, and give them time to experiment because they in time could become our AI multipliers. And then I think over time you do want to expand it. You want to keep control, but with empowered oversight. So in time, kind of the future could look like you don't have a centralized bottleneck. And the agents, you shouldn't have teams building agents in isolation. So, because the key thing is to understand what are the business processes the agent is supporting. How are we going to frame the good instructions or prompts? So that will then mean also upskilling other people around the business. But initially, actually, even the data team may need help with actually spotting those business related use cases and having those blended skills that Paris was referring to before you spread this out far wider. And if when you do spread it out far wider, I think it's about sharing guidelines, ensuring that you're always maintaining the ethics, accuracy, how to escalate issues, but giving the data and product and insight leads oversight to ensure that alignment.
Like that's a really interesting. I think it loops us back around to the start when we talked about like the right problem, the right solution, and being value focused. And actually, it implies much more about this the kind of things that Databricks and tech bringing business and technology even closer together, and the overlap between their roles, like roles increasing. I think Kiko, you had definitely given a what's the impact on kind of frontline staff where they are acting as they are human agents with augmented by the kind of agentic solution to free up time to do something else. And that takes a lot of change consideration and impact on the business. And I think then Paris and Ela are kind of reflecting on internal data and technology teams and how they're approaching it. What does that change their nature? And I think the overall thing is these two parts of the businesses are coming closer together. And it's about orchestrating that in the right way, like you said, with the right governance and the kind of guardrails. I mean, it's not an easy thing, it's not an overnight thing, but it's definitely kind of part of that journey. But I just think I was so interested actually. Maybe it's unintended, but we loop back around to that focus on the value and make sure everybody's focused on driving that out and then taking the kind of steps on that journey. I was going to actually, as we kind of head towards the top of the hour and close out, it's just some some questions actually that have popped up, and kind of Paris, I'll come to you in first in the context of, you said you've migrated Databricks from last year, and I know we kicked off with Agentbricks, all exciting, it's coming from Databricks, but on your journey, I guess I'd be really interested to hear kind of a bit of why you chose Databricks and the value it's delivered at the moment, like as a business for you, and what's exciting for the future. It's obviously a strategic choice that you guys have made.
Yeah, so from a strategic point of view, our decision to migrate to Databricks is we have an event-based structure with our software platform Propel. So Databricks is just better use case for the software platform, and also from a migration point of view, we've migrated a lot of our legacy data sources across as well. So we've had kind of luxury, I guess, to clean house and build new processes around that. We also restructured the team as well, so we've assembled a lot of newer skill sets and expertise within Databricks as well. So it's had that, I guess, that full like the kind of cliche of technology, people, and process, where we've really dotted our I's and crossed our T's. Yeah. In terms of I guess exciting functionality and use cases for the future. So I mean, at the moment we're using asset bundles to their full potential. It's been extremely helpful in terms of, I guess, again, a lot of guardrails around the migrations and deployments of new models that we're building through data science. In the future, now that we've assembled all of our data under one new data lake, we're in a huge period of hypercare as well. We'll be looking at Genie AI and how we can use that with some of our more in combination with our data catalog as that business interface, and I guess quickly surfacing specific insights for key stakeholders. Yes, that's kind of where we are at the moment.
No, thank you. That's really good to understand kind of practically how you're approaching it. And I guess kind of, Ela, to loop round to you, like you've talked about leading the digital transformation and the charge in Thomas Telford, and there's been a bit about governance and stakeholder management. Kind of where are you on your journey, and how are you prioritizing your focus and maintaining that sustainable progress?
Yes, so we are still on quite at an early stage in our data maturity journey. So we've now got our data in Azure Synapse, and one of the challenges we still have is the gaps in our data, the quality, and so on. And I have been thinking, actually, recently I started to look at Databricks to see how it could support spotting those gaps and enabling us to get to that next stage. And once we've done that, actually, if we can then take advantage of other tools like Agentbricks, obviously it's something that we could do in time. But right now, I think our focus has to be, let's enhance the quality of our existing data, enrich it. We also need to build new data, which our new product development process will enable us to do. When we launch our big digital product later this year, it will enable us to bring in new types of data to support the future. And I think it's at that point we can start to consider other tools.
That's it again, and that comes back, doesn't it, to your use cases and the value delivery. Get the foundations right and be clear on the roadmap that you're going, and then you can pick those off and as you said, choose the right technology for the right problem.
Well, yes, and actually the other reason why I'm looking at those use cases and so on is actually for two reasons. One is that actually we want to bring our internal stakeholders on that journey with us to say we are forward looking and we're looking at sort of what we can do. This is the vision. But at the same time, if we don't do it, there's also a risk there that the board thinks, well, actually, you're quite slow at this. So there's that fine balance. So it's helping to build that narrative.
Yeah. And that narrative, as you said, narrative and storytelling, that's sometimes the key part in these journeys. I guess a nice segue to yourself, Kiko, in your role and your you're overseeing a number of companies that are going on these journeys. I guess kind of taking what Paris and Ilya said, but for you, what would be really interesting is what are there any kind of common things you're seeing across the organizations you work with that that people listening in could be aware of? Like, if you were to kind of give some key lessons from things you're seeing across multiples so people can take it into their one.
I think, well, it's linked to something that Ila, you said before. There's definitely a change in mindset, which is people understand that there is value in having data that is serving the business, right? That rather than having it isolated in different systems, making sure that is accessible and that is consistent, people are understanding more and more that there is value in that. And I think agentic AI is still a bit futuristic, or is still a bit uh, mysterious or exotic or unknown. And and there is interesting curiosity in that. So I definitely see that. But what has definitely clicked, or what is definitely clicking, is that data needs to be readily available and needs to be accessible. And that's a common pattern, and that's what is in the in the 15 months that I've been at CVP. This is where I'm trying to make a difference mostly, and I think we are working in the right direction.
Yeah, that concept of data as an asset and treating your data as a valuable asset within the business is key. And yeah, right. That when we talk about foundation blocks, that has to be the first thing.
Yeah,
Getting it, treating it properly, and getting everyone to understand the value within it, and then you can target, kind of, as you said, more futuristic use cases. But then you can kind of get that excitement going, and you start that roadmap building. Yeah, exactly right. Data as an asset, getting the data in the condition that you can use it. Thank you.
thank
Conscious
you.
of time, and we are nearly at the top of the hour, so I'm gonna put you guys like kind of a little bit on the spot, right? So go around one at a time, and just for the attendees, if you guys have got one key message, kind of key takeaway that you think people should be aware of, right? And that could be something we talked about, or something that you hold true to yourselves in the business, that businesses you organize but and run. Kind of, what would be your one message for people to leave with? And I'm gonna, yeah. Shall I go? I'll go with mine, I think, right? To give you guys a bit of time to think, because I know I kind of haven't prepped this on before, but I think it really is, and it's about this discussion we've had, which is around right problem for the right solution. So there are a lot of, and Databricks is a great example of it being exciting technology that pushes the boundaries and makes more things possible. But no one needs kind of, the hammer to crack the nut. And it's really about making sure that you identify the problem and the value within it, and you choose the right solution to solve it. That would be my kind of takeaway for people, is keep focusing on that, the value in the problem you're trying to solve, and make sure you are tackling it with the right solution. Don't go getting a supercharged solution for something that could have a simple answer. And on that, I will go, Kiko. So you're off mute.
Yeah, I can go next. Thanks for that. I think to me the key message is there needs to be a dual mentality. On one hand, think about the exciting use case, think about the futuristic and the groundbreaking thing that you want to change in the company with AI, and keep in mind that the engineering, and the second part is keep in mind that the engineering, even though it's getting cheaper and it's getting easier, it's still hard to get right, but it's very, very worth to get right, and a significant part of the investment in AI needs to go into getting the engineering right.
Thank you. Paris, do you want to go? Have you got...
Yeah, I was just going to build on that, and keeping the conversation around return on investment. Is the juice worth the squeeze kind of thing, and not like dampening any excitement around anything, but just tempering expectations, and that constant education cycle as well, to Kiko's point around quality, engineering, process. Yeah.
Thank you. And last but not least.
So I think we've talked about it a lot today. Start with the data, get your data in shape, and then really focus on the value. Where are you going to drive the value? And then it's about getting that buy-in. I think there's a lot of work to do internally in a lot of organizations to get that buy-in right with the top of the company as well as everybody else, your kind of colleagues and peers. And then you can start to actually look at a pilot project once you've done that.
Great, thank you. That brings us nicely to the top of the hour. So I want to say thank you to Paris, Ila, and Kiko for joining me and having a discussion. And thank you for everybody who's tuned in and listened. Hopefully it was really interesting and informative, and you have some things you can take away and use in your businesses. So thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
Thank you. Bye.